Buenos nachos, my little friends. It's Marky D123 and gut punching is my specialty. We've got a Patreon request today from Thomas John. If you want to make the Hawk talk, sign up today. And of course, it's Ring of the Hawk, the show where we watch back a wrestler's short run with a company and at the end we shove them a final grade to see if they're capable of doing the JOB to the HAWK. Today it's going to be Hernandez with his run in Lucha Underground in 2014-2015. And stay watching until the end, because I know this run ends in some controversy. Hernandez was a guy I always enjoyed in TNA. Supermex was pushed as an upper mid-carder in TNA for years, but never managed to make it into the top tier. He had his fans backstage, and TNA were desperate to capture the Latino demographic. If you're a fan of Hernandez, I recently did a 2-hour interview of him on Patreon. We spoke about TNA and Lucha Underground, and it was a good laugh. Despite his lengthy TNA stay, he was fired in 2014. But luckily for him, he wasn't unemployed for long, as Lucha Underground was starting up. Maybe this is the place he can finally become a main eventer. Match 1, Brian Cage, King Cuerno and Tejano vs Hernandez, Johnny Mundo and Prince Puma. Lucha Underground Championship first round match. Hernandez is being billed as the new guy in the match, as this is his debut. Obviously, you're not paying attention, are you? Our guy will start out with King Cuerno as they start to circle around the ring. Hernandez no-sells a chop and puts Cuerno in the corner and gives him a chop in return. Now Hernandez tries to rock him to sleep, but then Cuerno tries to roll him over. It doesn't work. Hernandez presses Cuerno up and tosses him down, and then Tejano tags in. Hernandez puts Tejano on his shoulder and drives him into the corner, as Johnny Mundo takes over for his team. Cuerno and Tejano double team Puma for a minute until Puma clears the ring with some nice entaguris. Hernandez turns Cuerno inside out, and then he splashes Tejano in the corner as well. Mundo decides to propel off Hernandez and hits a drop kick on his opponents. Hernandez turns the match in their favour with a double clothesline. Puma with the Pele kick on Cage, and then Hernandez clotheslines him outside. Hernandez follows that by flying out of the ring. This run's actually looking quite bright so far. Hernandez's tag partners now dive on them as well. Everyone takes some running strikes in the corner on Cage, then Puma hits a 450 from the springboard, but Cage is able to kick out. Hernandez shoulder blocks the machine, and then Tejano hits Hernandez with a code breaker. Hernandez and Cage start brawling on the outside, and then Tejano hits Puma with a bull rope while the ref is distracted. King Cuerno hits the thrill of the hunts for the win. I have to say, Hernandez looked like a formidable threat, and he had some pretty cool moments in this match. He may not have got the win, but it was a good debut. Let's give it a B and hope it stays this way. Match 2, Hernandez vs Brian Cage vs King Cuerno. Lucha Underground Championship #1 contenders match. Out of the gate, Cage and Cuerno start double teaming Hernandez. There's a double suplex delivered on Hernandez and then a standing moonsault from Cage and a frog splash on Hernandez. Cage and Cuerno continue to fight for the pin, and then eventually Cage gets knocked wobbly with a kick. Hernandez gets back in the ring for a double clothesline, but he eats a double super kick and then a double splash in the corner. Cage hits German on Cuerno. Hernandez isn't out of it though, and he skins the cat on the apron and then gives his opponents a slingshot clothesline. That was cool, especially for someone his size. Hernandez body checks Cuerno away and then he eats a spinning heel kick from Cage. The next move looks like a flapjack into a knee on Hernandez, and then Cage back suplexes Cuerno on top of him for a 2. I don't know why they're still teaming up on Hernandez. If anything, I would team up on Cage. Hernandez dodges a discus clothesline with a big boot. Then he powers up Cuerno for what Striker calls the intestine buster. Marty the Moth appears flapping in the ring, and then Cuerno drop kicks him. Hernandez gives him a slap and Cage dumps him to the outside. Don't know what that was all about. He's just a weirdo really, isn't he? Hernandez connects with a rear drop kick and Cage gets sent to the floor. Hernandez then nails Cuerno with the Dominator for the victory. Alright, we're only 2 matches in. Hernandez has already earned a world title match. The match was basically a handicap match against him the whole time, but he was able to beat the odds in impressive fashion, so I'll give it a B. Match 3, Hernandez and Prince Puma vs Cage and King Cuerno. Hernandez has a confrontation backstage with Prince Puma, and the GM books another match for Hernandez before he can earn his Lucha Underground Championship match, and we'll get to that. The 2 bigger boys will begin our tag match. Hernandez gets himself up when he hits a springboard shoulder tackle to Cage and then tags in Puma. Puma takes the heat from Cage and Cuerno for a little bit. Puma's able to get back into the match with a Blue Thunder bomb, and Hernandez resumes his duties with a shoulder tackle on Cage and a big lariat on Cuerno. Hernandez powers Cuerno up in a military press and then tosses him out onto Cage on the outside. Hernandez soars over the top ropes and takes his opponents out. Puma wants to deliver a dive too, but Hernandez gets in the way. I should also mention that Puma and Hernandez are tag partners that don't get on. How can I possibly not tell you that amazing line? I know you all love that one. Hernandez stops the Prince from delivering a shot in the corner, and Hernandez hits the splash. Puma with an elbow now and a little spin from Hernandez into a corner dropkick, and then a big belly to belly on Cuerno, but he kicks out at 2. There's the pounce from Hernandez on Cuerno right before Cage lays him out of a clothesline. Cuerno attempts the suicide dive, but Hernandez pulls Puma in front of him. I guess because he's a dick, he tries to help Puma up now, and then he boots him in the face and gives him a border toss onto the apron. Cage looks to pick up the pieces and hits Weapon X on Puma for the win, as Hernandez stands in the entranceway looking gormless. This match was certainly more tame than the previous, but at least we got some build to their eventual world title match. I'm giving it a C. Match 4, Hernandez vs Alberto El Patron No DQ Lucha Underground Championship #1 contenders match. Hernandez has been forced into this match by Dario Cueta to kind of prove that he belongs in this spot. Hernandez starts slamming Alberto's head into the corner and then tosses him shoulder first into the post. Hernandez drives Patron into the apron, not once, not twice, but thrice, and it sure wasn't nice. Now Patron ducks a clothesline from Hernandez and then hits a backstab on him for a 2 count. El Patron looks for the super kick, but Hernandez shuts him down. Big Supermex powers Alberto up on his shoulders and then gives him a backbreaker. Nice. Del Rio responds with a super kick and Hernandez is able to get his shoulder up at 2. Johnny Mundo slides out like a turd into the toilet and pulls Patron out of the ring and gives him a DDT on the floor. And then he sends Del Rio through the manager's window in the temple. The visual of Patron hanging out of the window is pretty hilarious, not gonna lie. Mundo lugs Alberto back into the ring and Hernandez smiles with happiness and makes the cover for the 3. The weakest match so far. I'm giving it a D for that window spot, but that wasn't really Hernandez who did it. I think it was that smile that had me sold there. How could you hate this man who's smiling like that? Match 5, Lucha Underground Championship match, Hernandez vs the champion Prince Puma. The crowd is lively for this match, it's not even the main event. Hernandez catches Puma for a botched Hurricanrana attempt and gives him a facebuster. Nice save. Puma connects with a dropkick now and then sends Hernandez to the outside. He looks for a dive, but he fakes him out with some handsprings. Prince Puma with a Gemenguri and then a flying crossbody before Hernandez kicks out at 1. Hernandez responds with a corner splash and a running senton on Puma. Hernandez shrugs off the sunset flip attempt and pulls Puma to his feet before he counters with a big kick to the head. Supermex recovers with a choke throw across the ring. Hernandez powers him up on his shoulder and holds him in the torture rack and then drops Puma with a backbreaker for the 2. Next up we got Puma getting caught off a crossbody attempt, but then Hernandez lifts him up and gets a 2 count off a sit-out powerbomb. Hernandez tries to finish him off with the border toss, but Puma can counter, and then Puma gets sent to the outside of the ring. On the outside, Puma reaches for a chair under the ring, and as Hernandez attempts to dive over the top, Puma smacks him with the chair as Konad distracts the referee. It's Puma with a beautiful handspring corkscrew moonsault to the outside on Hernandez. Hernandez isn't dead though, and he slaps away a kick from Puma, and he border tosses Puma again into the ring apron. Puma is a dead haddock on the floor. The next border toss from Hernandez is halted, and as Puma gets tossed onto the atrium, he gives Hernandez a corkscrew moonsault. Gotta love Ricochet. Prince Puma with the 450 splash from the springboard, but Hernandez is able to kick out 2. Puma climbs to the top and attempts a 630 senton, but there's no water in the pool, and that was a rough landing. Hernandez nails Puma with the intestine buster, but Puma has more fight left in and kicks out. Yet another attempt at the border toss now. Puma rolls him into a pin for a rope break. Hernandez hits a kick to the face, then catches Puma for a power slam. Hernandez looks really versatile in this match. I'm loving the big man, small man dynamic in this one. Hernandez attempts a top rope splash, but Puma gets the knees up. Hernandez is on the ground, he eats a super kick and then a roundhouse, and to conclude, an axe kick. But that doesn't end the match. Somehow Hernandez is still not dead and he's looking for a superplex, but Puma is able to maneuver out of it with a roundhouse. Not once, but twice. I'm not saying it again because it won't be nice. Puma takes this opportunity and nails a 630 senton on Hernandez for the win. Great title match between these two, and aside from a couple of miscues, it was pretty alright. Let's give it a B. Halfway through and we're looking good. Match 6. Hernandez vs Brian Cage vs Drago vs King Cuerno. Lucha Underground #1 contenders title match. If Drago loses this match, he'll be banished and will have to unmask. If Hernandez loses this match, he'll get punched in the gut. Supermex pushes Cuerno to start off, and then he clotheslines him and Cage out of the ring. On the outside, Cage sends Hernandez face first into the barricade, and Hernandez flops to the floor. Hernandez responds by giving Cage a receipt, and he Irish rips him into the barricade even harder. Big Supermex continues going and slingshots himself into King Cuerno. He now looks for the border toss on Cuerno, but Cage cuts him off and hits a dropkick to take control. Hernandez fires back up, but he gets caught with an assisted kick from Cuerno and Cage. Cage and Cuerno start double teaming Hernandez more and more for the second match in this run, and they hit a double suplex. These two guys need to leave him alone. Cuerno and Cage climb to opposite corners, and Cage nails an elbow drop, and to follow, Cuerno with a splash, and to finish, Drago with a senton onto our guy. Hernandez is away for a bit after all that. He gets back in the match when he lariats Cage and tackles down Cuerno. Hernandez with the get off me on King Cuerno out of the ring, and now it's him and Drago one-on-one. Drago takes him down and climbs to the top, and then nails a big splash for the 2 count. Killshot watches on as Hernandez takes Drago for the spin. Brian Cage pulls Hernandez out the ring and into the barricade, and then he starts brawling with Cuerno. Hernandez with the intestine buster on Cuerno, and shortly after an elbow on Cage. Brian Cage connects with the moonsault off the top, and he takes down Hernandez right before Drago takes control with a dropkick. Cage with an elbow on Hernandez now, and then he ducks a clothesline and dives to the outside onto Drago and Cuerno. Brian Cage climbs to the top and face plants with a moonsault onto Hernandez and Drago. Cuerno follows up that insanity with an arrow to kill shot, and he dives onto everyone except Hernandez, who moves out of the way. Hernandez takes Cuerno into the ring, but that allows Drago to powerbomb Cuerno off the apron. Drago wins the match after he spits the mist on Cuerno and hits a whip of the dragon's tail into the dragon's lair, and he picks up the win. Decent fatal 4-way match. I think the victory was obvious from the get-go, but still, it was entertaining. Let's give it a C. Match 7, Hernandez versus Drago. Hernandez pushes Drago over, and then Drago springs back to his feet immediately, and Hernandez dumps in his nappy of fear. Hernandez pulls Drago up after a sunset flip attempt, but that gives him an enziguri. Drago with the poison Rana attempt, but Hernandez sends him into the corner, and this allows Drago to hit a springboard dropkick. Drago with a hurricanrana now, but Hernandez is too strong, and he powerbombs Drago into the corner. Hernandez gives Drago a kiss on the head and a big chop to follow. Now it's a 2 count for Hernandez after he powers Drago up with a reverse power slam. Hernandez is slowed down when he gets caught with a kick in the corner. He lifts himself up onto the top rope, and when Drago tries to take control, he hits a super hurricanrana off the top. But once again, Hernandez is too strong and he kicks out. Hernandez goes flying over the top rope now, and Drago with a tope suicida on the outside. Drago lands on the apron and hits a kick on Hernandez before he hits an imploding plancha to the floor. Hernandez nails a kick on Drago, and then he kills Drago with a border toss onto the apron. Hernandez pulls a fan from the crowd and takes off the fan's belt. After throwing the fan into the chair, he starts whipping Drago with the belt. Hernandez is now choking Drago with the belt. The ref calls for the DQ. So Drago's the winner. Hernandez grabs the microphone and says, "You need to realise that dragons aren't real. That's a man that I just beat." Definitely a setup for another match. This match had some good back and forth action. And I think I'm going to up the score for the promo because that was pretty badass. It's a very low B. Match 8, 8-man tag. Hernandez, Jack Evans, Johnny Mundo and Superfly versus Aerostar, Alberto El Patron, Drago and Sexy Star. Johnny Mundo and Alberto El Patron start the match of our 8-man encounter. 7-man and 1 woman. Jack Evans taunts Patron with a backflip right before he gets smacked down to the mat. Hernandez stands on the apron for a while until he starts going back and forth with Drago, and then Patron gets tagged in. The match starts going awry on the outside before Hernandez's team sends Patron back into the ring. Hernandez looks over at Drago from his corner, and then he moves out of the way of Drago's dive. Hernandez isn't safe though, as Sexy Star is nearby and she dives onto everyone. Patron looks for a dive of his own, but Mundo pulls him out of the ring, and then Mundo runs away up the stairs and dumps his nappy of fear as Patron chases him out of the temple. Hernandez is now the legal man, and he catches Aerostar midair off the crossbody and gives him a sound spinebuster for the 2. Hernandez pulls Sexy Star up off Superfly and then gives her a Canadian backbreaker, and then he eats a super kick from Drago. Patron has returned and he ducks Hernandez's clothesline and then hits a backstabber. The match is won by Team Hernandez when Mundo rolls up Sexy Star's crossbody into a pinfall. Hernandez was not a focal point of this match despite it being his team. Probably the weakest performance so far, it's a D. Match 9, Hernandez versus Drago in a Believers Backlash match. This match is essentially a lumberjack match, except that all the participants have straps in their hands to whip their competitors if they leave the ring. Hernandez out the gate tosses Drago around the ring. He makes Drago fall on his nuts on the top rope, and then he jumps off the top rope and gives him a drop kick to the outside. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, the lumberjacks want to help Drago and not hit him. Hernandez gets pissed off about that and he pushes Drago onto the outside, right before he gets a conga line of belt straps to the back all over the arena. You know, this isn't a bad idea for a match. Someone hop on this. Drago climbs to the top and hits a corkscrew crossbody on Hernandez. Now he clotheslines him to the outside, and a bunch of fat guys start whipping Hernandez on the floor. They're probably just jealous of his physique. The fat guy in the red shirt gets one good hit on Hernandez's ass and he takes a seat on the apron. One fan tries to hit him while he sat down, but Hernandez grabs the belt away. I think that's the same guy Hernandez pulled the belt off of 2 matches ago. Hernandez with a slingshot shoulder tackle, and he starts boasting to the temple. Drago gets caught off his crossbody, and then Hernandez pops him up into a powerbomb, and a lumberjack yells, "I hate Hernandez." Drago connects with a chop to the back of the head and a spinning DDT on Hernandez. Supermex manages to stop with a sunset flip attempt, and he pulls Drago up, but he eats a kick from Drago instead. Now Hernandez has Drago over his shoulder, but Drago is able to maneuver Hernandez over into the Dragon's Lair, but it's just a 2. This Drago guy is oily. He's like an otter. Drago gets lifted up, and Hernandez with the border toss onto a few lumberjacks to the outside. I like that spot. Hernandez looks to wind up for the dive, but Drago sprays him with the mist mid-air, and then the Believers start unloading on Hernandez with the straps. Drago finds a table amongst the chaos, and Hernandez climbs under the ring, but he walks to the wrong side and gets jumped by the lumberjacks. Drago pulls out his nunchucks, and he starts firing away on Hernandez on the outside. Jesus, this is a fun match. Drago lays Hernandez out on the table, and then he scales the table and nails a top rope splash through the table. Hernandez is sent back into the ring, and he's hit with another splash off the top, and Drago picks up the win. I was contemplating giving this match an A for the creativity, but I think it should have gone a bit longer. Let's give it a really high B. Match 10, Aztec Warfare match for the Lucha Underground title. For those of you who don't know, this match is essentially a Royal Rumble, but you can only be eliminated by pinfall or submission. And no DQs, no countouts, and no top rope eliminations. Right before his entry, Pentagon Dark gives Vinny Massaro a Pentagon driver onto a pizza. Hernandez will enter the match at number 10, so he has somewhat of an advantage. He starts talking smack with Pentagon in the ring right before he gives him a smack. Hernandez is gloating around, but Pentagon gives him a spin kick to the gut. Pentagon grabs Hernandez's arm and snaps it back, and then gets pinned. And that's enough to pin Hernandez for the 3. Wow, what a surprise entrant there. 3 years later and he gets his arm broken and a lot of humiliation. It's an S. This match is eventually won by Pentagon Dark after he snaps Marty the Moth's arm and he retains his Lucha Underground title. Match 11. Lucha Underground title match. Hernandez versus Pentagon Dark, the champion. Pentagon Dark wants to give a wedding gift to the newlyweds Johnny Mundo and Tyre, the gift of a broken arm. Pentagon is sad because Mundo's doctor won't let him compete and he wants to break some bones, so he makes an open challenge. Hernandez has the microphone for a rare time and Hernandez says, "You're looking for someone with balls?" Everyone knows Hernandez has the biggest balls in this building. He says, "If I'm gonna face you, it's gonna be for your championship." Hernandez is going to get revenge for his broken arm, but Pentagon tells him something in Spanish and then calls him a bitch. Pentagon nails a couple of kicks on our guy and starts us off with a hurricanrana. Pentagon follows Hernandez to the outside and he hits another hurricanrana. Hernandez tries to fight out of it, but Pentagon Irish whips the big guy into the crowd chairs. Pentagon shushes the crowd and gives Hernandez one loud chop and then followed by another. He searches for a boot stomp off the top, but Hernandez moves to the outside. Now Hernandez slingshots himself out the ring with a shoulder tackle and then he lands on his feet off a dive to the outside. Good, he hasn't missed a trick while he's been away. Hernandez takes control of Pentagon and tells the fans to move out the way, and then he tosses Pentagon into the ring. Classic heel move there. Supermex powers Pentagon up for the Canadian backbreaker. Right before he delivers, he gives a bird to the crowd. But Pentagon isn't dead. He moves out of the corner and gives Hernandez a super kick and then a sling blade, but it's just a 2 count. Hernandez climbs to the top but eats a smack from Pentagon. Pentagon joins him, but Hernandez knocks him off the top, and then he sends himself off the top with a splash. Unfortunately, it's not enough to beat Pentagon. Pentagon nails a super kick. Hernandez is starting to get desperate and attempts the slingshot shoulder block again, but Pentagon catches him midair with the super kick. Pentagon ends the match after the Pentagon driver and he picks up the 3 count. After the match, Pentagon tries to break Hernandez's arm again, but King Cuerno comes to his rescue with a shot to Pentagon's back. This was a pretty alright match, and we saw some things Hernandez hasn't done yet. Let's give it a B. I think that Hernandez still has it. Just the booking got terrible after his return in Season 4, as opposed to Season 1. That's not Hernandez's fault. Match 12. Hernandez versus Jake Strong versus Aerostar versus Big Bad Steve versus Dante Fox versus King Cuerno versus PJ Black in a Battle Royal match. Hernandez immediately tries to eliminate Aerostar. Big Bad Steve gets eliminated after he eats a 619 on the apron. Hernandez is a dumbass and sends himself over the top rope to dodge an Irish whip. He turns his back to the match and then PJ Black and King Cuerno kick him out of the ring. He literally did nothing besides get himself in a prone situation for an elimination. It's about as much of an S as you can get. The match is eventually won by Jake Strong after he pounces Dante Fox and then tosses him over the top rope. Match 13, final match. Hernandez versus Jake Strong versus Aerostar versus Big Bad Steve versus Dante Fox versus King Cuerno versus PJ Black in a 7 to survive elimination match for the vacant Gift of the Gods title. Dante Fox literally kicks off the match with a pump kick on Strong and then one on Aerostar. Hernandez gets sent to the outside by Dante Fox as he throws down his bandana in anger. Dante Fox jumps onto the top rope and hits an imploding plancha onto everyone on the outside. Hernandez does manage to catch Fox and he starts rocking Dante to sleep and he looks for the powerbomb. Hernandez attempts to lower it and he kicks up, and now there's a kick that's got Hernandez staggering. Hernandez stops staggering and looks for the border toss, but Fox maneuvers out of it into a backslide and he eliminates Hernandez. Game over. Damn, I thought he'd last a little bit longer, unlike the Hawk when he's with your girl. This match is eventually won by Jake Strong after eliminating Dante Fox with the ankle lock. I literally can't give it anything else. What a disappointing ending to this run. It's an S. So after this, the controversy began. Hernandez turned back up in TNA as part of MVP's beatdown clan, but that was not to last. After only 2 weeks, a major problem came to light. Lucha Underground was saying Hernandez had an exclusive contract with them and TNA weren't allowed to show him on their show. It is said that Hernandez and MVP had both promised Hernandez was cleared to wrestle. Hernandez told me in our interview it was more of a handshake deal, but also he doesn't want to go into it too much in fears of getting sued. It's crazy how the US legal system works. That stuff went down almost a decade ago and there's still fears of being sued. Now there must have been some legitimacy to this story because TNA did decide to pull the entire beatdown angle from their show. This caused complete chaos with their show as the Beatdown Clan was the main storyline on the show. TNA were forced to reshoot weeks of TV so they could avoid having Hernandez on the show. So somewhere out there is 3 or 4 weeks of TV that nobody's ever seen. Hernandez gave me some insight to the pulled footage and told me the biggest thing that happened was that he had a cage match with the Destroyer Lashley, and Hernandez actually beat him in that match. Maybe in some sort of weird wacky parallel universe, if the legal stuff hadn't happened, Hernandez would have finally made it as a main eventer in TNA. Who knows? Who cares? Hernandez got a lot of heat backstage and wouldn't be seen in TNA for another few years, but he would be seen back in Lucha Underground. So this run was certainly entertaining during his first run in Season 1. He was having back-to-back amazing matchups with several different superstars. Prince Puma was certainly a great opponent to our guy with a great little man big man dynamic. The story of the straps with Drago was certainly entertaining storytelling as well. And not to mention, the Lumberjack strap match was chaotic on an enjoyable level. Hernandez was never lacking in the moves department and never seemed like he slouched in the ring. Even when he came back for Season 4, he was still able to fly and hit all the moves he used to. Hernandez was certainly a big part of the early Lucha Underground days. At least he got one last run at the top of the card. Just ignore his last 4 matches, they didn't happen. I'm talking about you. I have to grade the whole thing as I saw it, so I think for the Ring of the Hawk Season 3, we're going to give him a C. It was promising and Hernandez was entertaining throughout. I tried my best not to let those bad matches outshine the great couple of matches that he had for the majority of this run. And if you don't agree with that, tell your girl me and her are done.